This is really a golden age to be a trial lawyer because there are so many great lawyers that are giving back and teaching and sharing right now. There are so many more opportunities to learn now than there ever have been before.
Welcome to Hot Docket, the show where we talk about winning marketing strategies that have built the most successful law firms.
Join us every 2 weeks for the latest trends and tactics to grow your law firm.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Hot Docket podcast. Today, we're going to be talking all about trucking.
Yep, this is going to be an interesting episode because these are the big cases that everybody wants. And I think we've got an awesome guest with us this week. We've got Michael Cowen, and he is a specialist in trucking litigation.
Yeah, very exciting. The only thing I've been thinking about is I almost wish we had like product liability this week because I've got this terrible, not to overshare, terrible poison ivy rash that I've been combating and I'm taking steroids for. So if I go on a roid rage type of moment during this conversation, let it pass. Anyways, thanks for joining us today, Michael. We're excited to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Can you tell us a little bit about why you became a lawyer and the journey you took to get there?
You know, I get asked that a lot. I don't remember why I became a lawyer. I went to college. I got a psychology degree, which was not going to be a particularly valuable degree. I was deciding about whether to go to law school or whether to go to grad school in psychology, and decided that being a lawyer would be more interesting. I had no idea what that entailed. I had two uncles that were insurance defense lawyers, but they both told me not to go to law school. And if you knew me as an undergrad, that probably statistically was not bad advice given my lack of study skills and my overindulgence in alcohol and other things back at that point in my life. You would not have predicted that I would have been a particularly successful lawyer if you looked at me at the age of 19, 20. But I'm a rebel, but because of that, I didn't ask for any advice, didn't ask anything about the practice. And so I just decided to go to law school, got into a decent law school, and was going to do a very traditional career path. I started off with a judicial clerkship, and I started off working at a big Wall Street firm in New York, then the whole big law thing. But during law school, I had worked for two personal injury lawyers purely because they would pay me. I had never made more than minimum wage other than waiting tables before law school. And one firm paid $10 an hour, another one I think I got 14, and it was just mind blowing that someone would pay me that much money. And I had money in my pocket for the first time on a regular basis. It was awesome. But what I found in big law is I really enjoyed working at the PI firms more than I enjoyed working in big law.
That makes a lot of sense. And
Yeah.
do you think that background in psychology kind of sets you apart now? Like, do you think you have an edge because you can kind of get inside the mind, so to speak?
No, I think that I think a bachelor's degree in psychology. I think really there were just a bunch of us trying to figure out what was wrong with us. And so, because one of my best friends asked me that, yeah, you must be able to just really know what people are thinking. Like, no, you don't. You know some theory for the Bachelor of Psychology. You know, there's like multiple different theories of personality and the way people think, but there's not a whole lot of actionable information I got from my bachelor's in psychology. So I think I've learned a lot more just through living life and working with different consultants, and honestly working with my own therapist and learning who I am and learning to not project my thoughts and feelings on others, and to be able to listen and observe and try to figure out what other people are thinking and feeling, instead of letting my own fears or insecurities falsely attribute thoughts, feelings, and motivations to others that they don't really have.
So a lot of the firms that we have come on this show are direct to consumer and do a lot of marketing. You take a different approach. You guys are trial lawyers, and you're really marketing to other attorneys. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey and how you ended up becoming trial lawyers?
Sure. Well, I left New York and went to go work for a trial lawyer who paid me less money, but he did teach me to try cases. He let me try cases, and he sent me up to the Jerry Spence Trial Lawyers College back in '98 as a baby lawyer, which was a fantastic way to start a career. And he had a network of referring lawyers, and then he decided to quit with about 3 weeks' notice when I was about to turn 29. And I ended up with my own law firm. And I somehow kept, at least for the small car wreck cases nobody wanted, I was able to keep those referring lawyers. And then I started getting verdicts on those cases. And I frankly didn't have the money or the time to market to the public, and kind of developed a referral-based practice. Later on in my career, when we were doing better, we did some marketing to the public. But I looked at it once and, we're spending a lot of money, a lot of time, but my average fee after paying the referral fee on my trucking cases that were referred to me was more than triple my average fee on the cases that we got direct to consumer. So I said, well, this doesn't make any sense. Well, why am I doing all the money and time on the direct to consumer if I can get enough of these referred cases to keep going and to have a practice? And so at that point in my career, I made the decision to just do attorney referral. I mean, if someone calls us, we'll take the case, but we're not out there hustling for the cases to the public. And you still have to really focus on that attorney referral relationship and maintain it. We have people that have been referring us cases since the 90s, and that we still have maintained the relationship. And a lot of that has to do with find out what are their pain points, what gives them a pleasant experience, what are the biggest issues they've had when they refer to other people. Which I'll tell you, if anyone wants to get referral based business, never change the deal on somebody. That's the number one way to never get another. No matter how much the case went south on you, keep your deal. The other thing is communicate with them. They said that I feel like I've talked to people when they said I've referred a case to someone else and it went into a black hole for 2 years, and either I got a check in the mail at random or I got a call saying, "Oh, the case went south, and we're either going to have to sell it cheap or we're going to have to, cut the fee down." And cutting the fee down can work as long as they know what's going on and you keep them up to date. And the third thing is don't have the clients calling them back complaining about the service your firm is giving. If they refer someone to you and the clients are like, "Well, they're not returning my phone calls or they were rude to me," they're not going to want to refer you more cases. I guess there's a fourth one I didn't think of is it makes sure your staff doesn't shit on the referring lawyer. I mean, because seriously, sometimes a case is not in perfect condition when it gets over, and I tell my staff if they could do it without us, they wouldn't necessarily need us. But you know, even if you would have done it differently, you don't tell the client the referring lawyer didn't do a good job on the case because they're going to call them up and bitch them out. So it's important that you treat them with respect and treat the clients really well, and just communicate well and don't change the deal on them.
I love that you've taken like these lessons and kind of distilled them to these 4 key points, because a lot of firms, they think the only way to succeed is going to direct to consumer and at the expense of other channels like attorney referrals. And it's not, and it's all marketing. Like if you're marketing direct to consumer, that's one type of marketing. If you're marketing to other attorneys and maintaining those back end relationships, that takes just as much work. It's just a different type of work.
It's a different type of work, and it takes a budget. You can't just assume that because you're a good lawyer that the world is going to beat a path to your door. We put on seminars. We have our own podcast. We target people. We take them out. I just started a new program. I hired a sales rep away from a life care planning company, and her biggest job is not. I mean, she is supposed to go out and prospect, new potential referring lawyers, but her biggest job is update every referring lawyer on every case every month because it's easier to sell to the converted. And so if someone is already referring you cases and then you are letting them know, hey, we are working on this case, this is what we're doing, these are the questions we have for you, a lot of those conversations end with, oh, by the way, I've got another case, you want to look at it? So to me, like the better you take care of your referral partners, the more referrals you'll get from them. And it's so much easier to get like a small base of people referring you a lot of cases than it is to try to get like 100, 200 different referring lawyers.
And how do you use technology, if at all, to kind of aid you in that, like making sure that these people have a touch every month? Are you using a CRM? Are you using like email software? Can you walk us through any of that stack?
Yeah, we're using FileVine, and in the case, there is a date of last referral lawyer update. And then we use a company called Legal BI to run dashboards. And so we can, Abby, our business relations manager, can run a dashboard of people that need to be updated.
Amazing. Can you tell us a little bit about what makes trucking cases and our cases with commercial policies in general a bit different than, volume PI?
Absolutely. It's because you can build value on a case by finding corporate negligence that will get a jury upset, that will make a jury feel like this company is a threat to them and their families, and if they don't do something about it through their verdict, that another tragedy will happen and they will be in danger. And so, when it's just a car wreck, it's usually, outside of, alcohol, drugs, maybe distracted driving, it's usually just an accident. Someone made a momentary lapse, they caused an accident, and it's an individual human. And no matter what the jury instructions are, jurors want, if they feel that there's liability, they want to compensate, but they also don't want to bankrupt. And so there's this weighing in their head, and it's very difficult to get, multiple 7, 8 figure verdicts against individuals, or settlements for that reason, against individuals for the non-economic damage components of a case, because there's this fear like, well, if we give a bunch of money for pain, we're going to put this person in bankruptcy, or we're going to ruin their life. Companies, it's different. Companies, they still do that calculus. So the bigger the company, the more likely they are to follow the law and allow a full measure of non-economic damages. But they're really being able to go into the why. Why did this happen? And it's so many times in trucking and company vehicle cases, the why is because of a bad decision a company knowingly made in order to try to profit. And examples are hiring bad drivers. It's hard to find drivers out there. I get it. But then okay, instead of turning down work, I'm going to hire somebody with a bad driving record, or not spending the time and money to train your drivers, or either not monitoring them at all, or allowing them to continue driving without any kind of remedial training or extra supervision when they're doing dangerous things. They get tickets, they get other wrecks. Those kind of things, making them drive more hours, are pushing them to drive more hours than are safely than they can do safely in a day, and that is allowed by the regulations. So when you have those kind of corporate misconduct, it does two things. One, it gets a jury mad, but two, you're able to go take the time span of the case where you're not just talking about the moments before the collision. You're talking about months or years that this company had knowledge, they had an opportunity to fix it, and they chose not to do so. And that's just such a more fun case to try, and a case that has more value.
And when you go after this type of case, do you tend to start from the position of economic damages, or do you tend to start with like the story? Because this book, we'll link it in the comments. I'm sure a lot of our listeners already read it, but I read it kind of recently, Running with the Bulls. The whole theory there is how to get outsized results for clients, right? And you know this obviously better than we do. But one core thing I took away is there's kind of two ways to start the negotiation. One is from the point of economic damages. The other is from the story and like the point of non-economic.
Yeah, negotiation's actually pretty far along our process, because I believe in trucking and company vehicle litigation, you have to litigate some in order to establish what the value is, because value has two components. One is, what are the damages, which is mostly non-economic in my opinion, in most cases. But the second is what is I call the piss-off factor. Like, what did the company do or not do that might make a jury mad? And you just can't tell that from a police report. You have to go in there. You have to look at the driver's hours of service. You have to look at the driving record. You have to look at their safety training or lack thereof. You have to look at their safety performance history, do an open records request to the government, and get what kind of warnings they've had, what kind of safety data there is on that company, and really put the picture together. So if you have anything more than just, a simple, like, you had a sprain, it got better in 12 weeks case. If you have like ongoing, lifetime pain, they've had injections, they've have a herniated disc, whether it's surgical or not. I mean, having surgery sucks, but having pain that's not surgical, but you're still going to bother you the rest of your life, sucks too. So if you have that, we really want to follow suit before we evaluate the case, because we want to make sure we're doing that. And then the other side is, what is the human story? And I got this. I stole it from Rodney Jew. I paid him a lot of money. I can't say I stole it, but I learned it from Rodney Jew, which is, what did they love to do before? What was their life like before? What are they live with now? Which is, how was their life different because of this tragedy? And then what is the hope for the future? How can money make their life better, whether that's an economic damage, or that's like, they can't do this anymore, but they could spend money and do something else that would at least bring them some joy. And when you do that, then you can get a picture, a good idea of what it's worth. Maybe you have to do some focus groups. Maybe there's all this big data stuff now that I'm fascinated with, trying to figure out what all that's worth. But really don't tie it to the economic damages, because most of our trials lately, we're not even presenting the past economic damages.
That's very interesting. So can you tell us a few things that were the biggest changes in your career that let you open up your personal branding to be able to take on all of these awesome cases? Because a lot of times when we onboard a firm and we ask them, like, what type of cases do you want? Everyone's going to say, I want a case with a big commercial policy with super serious injuries. And a lot of times those cases end up being, they're gathered by the big firms that are doing a lot of advertising, whether it's through TV or digital. And then most of the time they get referred to a boutique litigation shop like yours. You've developed that personal brand over time. Can you kind of give us the timeline around that and what let you actually do that? Because not everyone can just get those kind of referrals.
Yeah,
Can you?
it takes time. So honestly, I had to start from the bottom. I before he left, my old boss took a docket of 50 low property damage chiropractor only cases where the chiropractic clinic was under investigation by the insurance company. Uh, and they almost all had to be tried. I mean, just they were a whole docket of crappy cases that almost all had to be tried. And he also gave a 50% referral fee because of the volume, which makes no sense at all. I can see why he quit. Good guy, great trial lawyer, not the best businessman in the world. So I tried a bunch of those cases and I got my butt kicked on some, but like on every third case, I popped it over the policy limits. That, and at that time in Brownsville, Texas, where I lived at the time, nobody else was getting over medicals on those cases. And every third case, I was getting between, you know, 40 and $100,000 on a case with just chiro and not a whole lot of property damage. And so people took notice. And so I started getting opportunities to try better cases and better cases. And part of it is you have to go and try them. You have to try some cases if you want to build a referral based brand. I mean, I was talking to Alex Shinara, Billboard King of Alabama, and he's a great person, and I'm trying to get some referrals from him, but he flat out says, "Okay, Mike, what's your biggest verdict?" I mean, just that's a big factor for him because he's not, no matter how much he likes me, I mean, he spent a lot of money to get that case, and I've got competitors that have big verdicts. You have to go out there and try some cases, and you're not going to get big verdicts unless you go take some chances and get your butt kicked sometimes. And it's part of the process. You also can't be shy. A big thing for me is learning to, you need to go and speak at events. And at first, you kind of have to speak on whatever you can speak on and make sure you do a good job. Turn your paper in on time, give a good presentation, never no show. And part of it, honestly, when you first start, it's about kissing ass. You have to like figure out who's on the committee. Like if you wanted to speak at AHA Trucking Litigation Group, join the group, go to their dinners at the winter and summer convention. They have a dinner, show up to the dinners, become friends. If you drink, go drinking. If you don't drink, at least go have lunch with the people making the decisions. So that way you get a shot. But at some point, you don't want your brand to become dependent on whether people on a committee think of you that day or whether people like you or don't like you on that committee. Because as you start growing in success, there will be jealousy and there will be people that don't want to see you succeed or feel like you're speaking too much or that you're too successful. So we started doing our own branding presentations. It started off just lunch. We would do a free lunch for local lawyers and we would present like 1 hour and get them 1 hour CLE credits. And from there it grew to, doing a seminar. Our first one, we weren't brave enough to do just us, so we did it with a couple other firms. But now we just do our own seminars with either just me or me and other people at the firm speaking. But even then, I mean, if you want people to attend that, it cannot be about, I want you all to come listen to me so you can learn why you should refer me cases. Because no one's going to show up to that. It has to provide value to the people that are going to be there. So you always need to be providing value. And I have an abundance mentality. Like I give away all my trucking forms. I give away. If you want a depot I've taken, that's fine. You can have it. You want the discovery I send, you can have it. I don't hold back anything because frankly, the person who's not going to refer out a case is going to refer it to me anyway. And the person who is going to bring in, and maybe they bring me in at the beginning, maybe they get into the case and they realize they'd like some help. I think they're more likely to do business with a person that was generous and instead of saying, I'm only going to share with you if you give me something, saying, here's what I have. If I can add value, I'd love to work with you. But if not, use this and do well. And I want you to do well. And I will celebrate your success and be happy for you.
There are a lot of those trial lawyer seminars, and a lot of them are hosted by other attorneys that have great personal brands. Think like Linear Trial Academy,
Yeah,
all
he's
those
great.
sort of things. If you had to rank your top 5 trial lawyers and you can't put yourself in the list, who else would you put on that list, and what do you think they're the best at,
Okay.
and what makes them great?
I would definitely say Mark Lanier. I mean, $1 billion verdict that you actually collected. I don't know if that's in the personal injury or death space. That is really rare. And his program that he puts on is so useful. I mean, I've only been once, but I went away with a list of things from at the top high end, like the psychology of stuff he uses, but the other thing, like the document camera he uses, and learning that there's a double wide, what he calls king flip chart, which has just changed the way I try cases because it's so much bigger and more stable than the old tripod flip charts I used to use. So I would think Lanier would be up there. In the trucking world, I would say Joe Freed for sure. Joe is, I mean, he's a wonderful friend and a great human being. But on top of that, he is the real deal. He knows his stuff and is effective in trial. And he had a recent case against Amazon, and it's on CVN. It's totally worth watching. He and his partner Michael Goldberg did such a masterful job, and they put on the plaintiff's case in a day and a half and got a $16.2 million verdict on what most lawyers would think is a very complicated case, but they work so hard to turn it into a simple case. And so Joe has been such a blessing for me. I know he's not active anymore, but you got to say Jerry Spence. I mean, he was legendary. And again, not only does he have the track record of really doing it in the courtroom, but then you've got the fact that he's shared so much and has given so much back through. Used to be the Trial Lawyers College, and they had all that ugliness, and now it's the Jerry Spence Trial Institute or something like that at his ranch in Wyoming. But I think Jerry still deserves his spot on the Mount Rushmore of trial lawyers. Now I'm going to get in trouble because I have so many friends, and going to have to only come up with two more names, and there's so many great trial lawyers out there. And I don't know everybody, so there's other people. Michael Leeserman, a totally different approach than Joe Freed, but again, gets incredible results and really does a trial approach that's more love than anger, which I really like. I think he's a very real person who really believes in what he does. And again, I think I'm biasing myself towards people that just give back. There's probably some like awesome, incredible trial lawyers that kick butt but just spend their time on yachts with a bunch of models instead of teaching other lawyers how to do the same thing. And good for them. I mean, no judgment. But I just don't think of them as much because I don't see them on the circuit. And I guess if I have to pick just one more, and I apologize. I mean, I'm between Rex Paris and Nick Rowley. I mean, Nick, obviously his results are incredible. He's also giving back a lot. His teaching, his books have helped me. But then Rex is like so on the cognitive science. Again, his verdicts are incredible too. And I've just never seen someone go into as much into the science and psychology in the way the brain works as Rex does. So I had to give you 6. I know I could probably come up with 20 more, but this is really a golden age to be a trial lawyer because there are so many great lawyers that are giving back and teaching and sharing right now. There are so many more opportunities to learn now than there ever have been before.
On that topic of giving back, are there any mistakes that you made earlier in your career that you want to give back and you want new lawyers to know about so they can avoid them?
Oh, tons. On the trucking part, the biggest mistake I made when I started is I didn't know that trucking cases were different than car wreck cases. And, I treated a trucking case just like a car wreck case, which is I got the case in, I got the police report, I got the medicals, I sent a demand or filed suit, and they paid me more than they paid me on a regular case. So I thought I was doing a good job. And then I had lunch with another lawyer, and he was making fun of somebody else. He goes, "Yeah, I have a trucking case, and this other lawyer has another plaintiff, and that dumbass doesn't even know what the federal motor carrier safety regulations are." And he starts laughing. And I pretended and laughed along with him because I didn't want to look stupid. But I didn't know what the federal motor carrier safety regulations were either. And so there was no Google yet. I think it was Alta Vista or something like that. I went back and typed it in and saw that there are these regulations and there's all this stuff out there about how the company can be negligent. And there wasn't great web stuff back then. There was not as great of a CLE. There wasn't even a trucking litigation group or AHA yet. There was no ATAA. And so I just realized, oh my gosh, I am not getting full value in my cases. I'm not working them upright because no one ever taught me how to do it. So I think that was the first one. Then I hired my first trucking expert. He's since passed away. A guy named Don Asa, another guy named Roger Allen, who's still active. And they started teaching me. And instead of just having them write a report, I would go fly up with them. It's like, teach me what I need to look for. Teach me what to do before I would do depositions. And just over the years learned. So I think that was the one big mistake. Other things, I hired a lawyer away from a referring lawyer once. That was really stupid. I apologize for doing that if you're listening. That was more than 20 years ago. And again, it was that other lawyer was going to leave that firm and stuff. But I mean, I was young, immature, wasn't thinking about how upset someone would rightfully be with me for hiring an employee away from someone that was nice enough to give me business. So yeah, don't do that. That was a big mistake I made. And I think the last one is I let fear hold back my personal branding for a long time. Like when I started a podcast, like who am I to start a podcast? Who am I to put on a seminar where I'm the only speaker? Uh, who would want to come to me? And I think I definitely could have done that like in '99 or 2000 when nobody cared who I was. And I hit a verdict for $76,000 on a case. Like, oh, big deal. No one's going to come listen to that. But I think I probably could have started doing it earlier. I just didn't have the confidence to do it. So I think just going out there and putting yourself out there more is a good idea.
On that same topic, I know you have a book and your own podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about those, as well as other areas where you think trial lawyers should definitely check out the content because it's going to help them out?
Yeah, I'm really proud of my book. I wrote a book called Big Rig Justice. It's available on Trial Guides. I know there's a discount code too, so you all can put it in the show notes. I'll give it to you after the show if people want to get it. Trialguides.com. But it's really, I spent 5 years on it, and it's really everything as of about a year ago I knew about trucking cases. So it starts off with the big picture theory, which is my theory of what motivates jurors to allow a big verdict. How to discover and create the story that would have the jurors conclude on their own that the defendant is a villain and that they need to be heroes and save the day through their verdict. Then it talks about kind of how the trucking industry works, so you can understand what the points you're going to be looking for. And then it goes into different types of cases. It starts off with that kind of big picture, bad drivers, fatigue, training, and then it just goes to a bunch of specific crash scenarios. If you have a rear-end collision, this is what you need to do. These are the resources that you can use to prove liability. If you have from everything from the 18-wheeler rear-ending you, which is pretty simple, to your client rear-ended the 18-wheeler, why would the 18-wheeler be responsible, and everything in between. And so I'm really proud of it. I put a bunch of work into it. I've been told by other people it's very useful. I would advise people to check that out if you want to do trucking work. My podcast, that's really a labor of love. I started it off just for fun. I didn't really expect that it would take off. I didn't know if anyone would listen to it, but I didn't even know what a podcast was before I started it. And then someone I knew was on the Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast. And I grew up as a kid. I was a white kid in the trailer for the first couple years of my life. So I was naturally a professional wrestling fan growing up. And so someone I knew was going to talk to Stone Cold. I wanted to hear that. And so I got the podcast. And at the time I was training for a marathon. So I had all these long, boring runs. I was looking for a trial lawyer podcast. At the time, I didn't see much out there that was useful content being released consistently. There were people that had some awesome stuff, but they would do a few episodes and they would fall off and maybe do another one a year later and then fall off. And there were people that put out a lot of stuff, but it was self-promotional and not very useful. So I just talked to my team, said, I want to do a podcast. Let's find people that I can learn from, that I want to learn from. And so if nothing else, if no one else ever listens, I've learned something and I've gotten something out of it. And by that time, I knew enough people in the trial lawyer world where I had access. My first guests were like Josh Carton, Joe Freed, Randy McGinn, Lisa Blue. I was able to get some really big people and learn from them. I've gotten something out of almost every episode I've recorded. But I just told my team, let's get 10 in the can before we start releasing them, because we need to be consistent. And I get caught up in trial, or I go on vacation and we can't miss an episode. And then it's just really taken off. Now we have thousands of people listening to every episode, and now I have people, instead of me begging people to come on, I have people trying to pitch themselves all the time to come on. And it's been a lot of fun. But really, for me, it's all about, providing useful content to the listener, because no one's going to listen to it just for me to talk about how great I am. It has to be something useful for them. And then, I just follow my own curiosity. If I figure I'm a trial lawyer, if sometimes they're marketing people, sometimes they're trial lawyers, sometimes they're consultants, management people. But if I find something that would be useful to me, I'm hoping it's useful to the audience, and so far it has been.
You had a sore spot with me, Michael. I had two things I wasn't allowed to watch growing up. My mom wouldn't let me watch Jerry Springer and WWE. Those were like the two off limits. I don't know why WWE was off limits, but it was.
Well, having watched WWE in the Attitude Era, she probably was right on both counts.
I guess. Anyways, I'm still bitter. Okay, well, we like to wrap up here with a little game. We have a game with all our guests, different one for each For you, we thought it'd be apt to play a game we call Sleazy or Not Sleazy.
Okay.
Given the world of legal advertising, there's plenty of things that are walking a line. So we're going to give you a marketing channel, I guess, for lack of a better category. You're going to tell us if you think it's sleazy or not sleazy.
Sure. To start it off, lead gen services.
Theoretically not sleazy if they'd get you decent cases.
All right, billboard advertising.
Not sleazy if done right.
Facebook advertising.
Not sleazy if done right. That's the problem. The categories are all fine. It's just what do you do with them? So no, I have so far categories. None of them.
Let's
none
assume
of them
majority.
are intrinsically.
Let's assume majority of channel.
Okay, not sleazy.
Marketing law firms.
Not sleazy at all. I love them. They refer me cases.
Influencer marketing.
I don't think that's sleazy intrinsically.
And
I'm really open-minded when it comes to marketing.
Yeah, well, it's a good
I think
thing.
anything,
And the last one, I think I know what your answer is going to be. Attorney to attorney marketing.
probably not sleazy. It can be.
Can you give an example of when that is sleazy?
Yeah, you can get someone hookers and blow to give you cases. I don't know. That would be sleazy. Paying someone's associate to sign up a case for your firm instead of I've heard of those things happening. Or paying an employee. I've had it happen to me once. Someone paid an employee at my firm to sign up a case for their firm instead of mine.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that's sleazy.
But every marketing channel. I mean, other than just flat out barratry, I don't believe that any marketing channel is inherently sleazy. I think it's all in how you do it.
I think that's fair. It's just there tends to be channels that are dominated by sleazy approaches. Like lead gen. Lead gen tends to be sleazy approaches.
I see a lot of deceptive lead gen stuff out there. I also see a lot of lead gen that is very deceptive to the lawyer because what they promise you and what you get for your money are very different.
Yeah, 100%. Michael, thanks for joining us today. This was a great episode. It was awesome getting to learn more about trucking litigation and everything that goes into attorney to attorney marketing. I think it's been a really great chat.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, that was interesting. One thing for sure is I'm going to read his book and check out the podcast because every time I read a book about the different strategies that trial lawyers use, it gives me a new appreciation for everything they do.
I think this episode has the best. I hope we don't F it up because I think this episode has the best potential for links and resources. We talked about a lot of helpful stuff, even going as deep as the easel or whatever for presenting at trial and what Michael talked about for linear, what linear suggested. So even something that's as concrete as that, there were a ton of those in this episode that we'll make sure we link to so folks can leverage it.
Yeah. It's funny how sometimes it's something that seems simple, like a different easel is a big game changer.
Totally. Yeah, 100%. I think that's it. No roid rage on my part, which is a plus. So all in all, great episode. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you on the next Hot Docket podcast. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Hot Docket. We're your hosts, Bobby and Andrew, founders of MeanPug, the marketing agency for ambitious law firms.
Have questions about marketing or anything we covered today? Email us at bark@meanpug.com. Be sure to subscribe to learn more.